7 GMT, that's 9 a.m. in Gaza, where the Israeli army has intensified its aerial and ground offensive. It says its forces are now operating in the heart of Khan Younis in southern Gaza. So for weeks, Israel had declared Khan Younis and its surroundings a so-called safe zone. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians displaced from their homes in the north have sought shelter there. But Israel has expanded its attack, saying senior Hamas leaders are hiding in the city. Well, in northern Gaza, many people have been killed in an early morning strike on the Jabalia refugee camp. This is the largest and most densely populated in the Strip. Israeli forces have bombed the site several times in the past few days, and many people are trapped under the rubble. In central Gaza, at least 45 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli strikes on residential buildings in Deir al-Balah. And in al-Nusayrat, people are digging through the rubble to recover bodies after an attack on Tuesday night. Israeli forces bombed a house, killing dozens of Palestinians and injuring several others. Hani Mahmoud is joining us now from Rafah. That's in southern Gaza. Before we get into what's happening in the south, Hani, tell us about that strike on the Jabalia refugee camp in the north and what's been the aftermath of that.
Yes, well, within the past 12 hours and early hours of this morning, the Israeli military just intensified its attacks on a Jabalia refugee camp, an area that have been repeatedly targeted since the beginning of the war, with massive airstrike, relentless artillery shellings. And what we're looking at now is a coordinated attacks by air, by land, and by sea at that particular early area, densely populated area, with thousands of people is still stranded in Jabalia who could not evacuate given the difficulty of the situation. But we're looking at more residential buildings that have been flattened completely, leveled to the ground, more public facilities. The entire area just turned into a pile over. And there are reports about tens of people have been killed in that area. The only problem that we have right now is the disabled communication. It's hard to get information and exact number of casualty because we have hospitals out of service completely. The system that it tracks the numbers of injuries, the numbers of those who are killed within the past few weeks have been stopped. So we're looking at approximately, given the intensity and the scale of the attacks, we're looking at 3 different kinds of attacks: by air, by land, and by sea. Again, all of this happens under allegations made by the Israeli military as early hours of yesterday's evening, where leaflets were dropped on Jabalia refugee camp, asking people, directly asking them to evacuate that area into another area within the surrounding of Jabalia refugee camp. Now, the problem with that narrative is there are no areas that are safe in Jabalia town and in Jabalia refugee camp. We're looking at the exact area that has been destroyed completely. In fact, it's hard for people to leave where they at, whether it's an evacuation center, their residential homes, their neighborhoods. Moving to another area becoming very difficult. The only way for people to leave is on foot, and that's extremely dangerous, as we know from past experience of what the Israeli military did to people who are trying to evacuate on major roads of whether when in or out of Jabalia refugee camp.
Right, and Hani, so, you know, the Israeli army has also told people to evacuate south, to go to Khan Younis, to go to Rafah, to go to these areas in the south. They declared them safe zones, but we understand that these areas are also coming under attack in the south, where you are.
Yes, indeed, there is no safe place across the Gaza Strip. And what I mean it literally from north to further south to Rafah, where we evacuated. This is the last point that we are able to evacuate to, because after this point, there is no options for Palestinians to go anywhere. The only options that might not be feasible or even impossible for Palestinians crossing to Egypt. And with the current situations, it seems very difficult. We're looking at Rafah crossing that has been shut down for the past 2 days, and even for people with proper paperwork, they're unable to cross to the Egyptian side. But here's the situation that we're looking at. Under heavy bombardment, people are being pushed into first the central part and then Khan Younis. And now Rafah, we're looking at more than 1.5 million people being squeezed into this pocket of land that's already populated with people. If we think of within the past few weeks, people who already evacuated from the north and Gaza city to Rafah, have already populated the area. Now from Khan Younis, one of the densely populated cities in the Gaza Strip, also moved to Rafah city. We're looking at very busy streets. I mean, coming this morning to the site of work, looking at streets and roads full of people who are still either evacuating, and those who slept overnight in the streets under very wet and rainy weather. Living conditions are becoming very, very difficult for people as UNRWA designated schools that turn into shelters are packed with people. We're looking at schools that a capacity of the school 1,500 students, now they turn into shelters with 5,000, 7,000 people inside of these schools with lack of sanitation and hygiene facilities are destroyed. The situations are very, very inhumane, and the living conditions are becoming very difficult with lack of basic supplies.
Okay, Hani, thank you so much for that update from the south of the Gaza Strip. Hani Mahmoud reporting for us.